6 or 7-man rosters, overrated or underrated?
Oh, that's definitely overrated. You don't this nonsense that's coming out. I mean, right? Okay, when you're playing an online league, or if you're going to a tournament and you suspect that one of your players might be ill, or if you're traveling and there's a chance something crazy might happen, take a sixth, register a sixth, maybe not even the coach, like we've done traditionally. I think that's just common sense. The idea of a rotational 6-man, 7-man roster is absolutely insane to me. It makes zero sense. It's antithetical to everything we know about top-tier Counter-Strike teams. And I think it's just one of those things where we're trying a little bit too hard to be like mainstream sports without any real justification for it. I don't think it's going to catch on. I think it's something Astralis are doing for a variety of gimmicky reasons, and therefore I'm absolutely going to say overrated.
VALORANT, overrated or underrated?
That's a tough one because I don't want to be too harsh on VALORANT. I have got to say that having played it, and I think a lot of Counter-Strike players that went across to see what all the fuss was about probably feel the same way. Got to say it's a little bit overrated, actually. It hasn't held my attention in the same way Counter-Strike has, and I think that's because it's deliberately simplified. It needs depth, it needs new maps, it needs a lot of attention and love and care. I'm hoping Riot can do that, so CS does have a little bit of competition to keep Valve honest. But right now, I think a lot of people are going to be scratching their heads a little bit and going, what was all the fuss about? So I'm going to say overrated.
Online CSGO, overrated or underrated?
Online Counter-Strike, unquestionably overrated. I see a lot of people sort of hyping up teams because they're beating better teams online. It's meaningless because it's not a high pressure environment. With the pandemic that's going on at the moment, obviously it's the only Counter-Strike we've got. I'm grateful we still have it, but the reality is that there is no kind of environment that's going to replicate the pressure of 8,000 people cheering on a stage, all eyes on you, playing for a championship in front of all of those people. And that's what separates the men from the boys, frankly. It's fine when you're playing in your bedroom and, your mom can bring you in a soda pop between rounds or whatever, and you can relax and put your feet up under your desk. That's great. We can all play our best Counter-Strike in that environment. It's not real Counter-Strike. It's not the highest level. And these results that we've had, they're not meaningless, but they're about as close to meaningless as you can get without them being meaningless. So I'm going to say online Counter-Strike is very overrated.
MIBR, overrated or underrated?
It's probably, this is a weird one because honestly, I think even their fans have kind of given up on them. They've got this revolving door policy when it comes to players. They're always trying, new guys. They're keeping a core that doesn't work anymore. And the results are terrible, honestly, for a team of that caliber with such big names and so much talent on the roster. I've got, even with all of that said, I've got to say they're still overrated. I think the kind of hero worship around them based on past achievements is absurd. I think they are so far from being the great team, and honestly, ever since they joined MIBR, it's just been one slow decline. No matter what lineup they've got, they keep relying upon this core and they're not getting anything done. I think if they were anyone else and playing for any other org, I think they would have all been cut. So yeah, overrated for sure.
Asia, overrated or underrated?
Asia's underrated for me. I mean, if anybody that's followed like what I do, I've been hyping the idea of having like a strong, in particular, a Chinese scene, but other countries getting involved. Maybe Korea comes back into the fold, maybe Japan. Obviously, you've got Oceania in there as well. And I think Australia has always been one of those parts of the world that has like hidden gems. Players that maybe they don't get discovered, but when they get a chance, they really do excel. We've seen that in NA. And for all the joking and stuff about, you know, the old Greyhound guys, you know, with the whole Dick Stacy and semi-pro stuff, the reality is, with him being the exception, I think a lot of those players proved that they could certainly hang in NA and continue to do very, very well. So when you take that entire region collectively, it's just a shame there's not more sponsorship, not more interest, and not more opportunity to kind of airlift players out and get them to regions that can kind of support them and nurture the talent. So I'm going to say underrated for sure.
ELEAGUE, overrated or underrated?
Ooh, tough one. And obviously I'm going to be massively biased. I think ELEAGUE, when kind of we first started, I think it was massively underrated. I don't think people understood what we were going to do and how we were going to raise the bar, and I think that work that we did really set off this kind of like chain reaction of everyone wanting to improve their production, improve how they looked after players, improved how they ran events, improved how they ran a studio, and that's the kind of legacy at ELEAGUE, in my opinion, other than of course two fantastic majors. Boston especially up there with the best that we've ever had. So definitely to begin with, underrated. I think now probably the issue we've had is ELEAGUE's moved away from Counter-Strike. I've got an inkling why. I'd wager it's to do with money, and it's probably a hard game to monetize and a hard game to squeeze content out of compared to the other ones. But people still talk about ELEAGUE like it's kind of relevant to the Counter-Strike landscape, and it hasn't been for a while. So currently it's actually overrated. But its legacy is probably underrated.
Journalism, overrated or underrated?
Esports journalism is definitely underrated. I think at a time sort of in the world where every day I think journalists kind of expose themselves to be these kind of, I don't know, like glorified bloggers with no training and no real interest actually in applying it, even if they've had the training. I think esports journalism, the standard that the average esports journalist is held to, is outrageous compared to how we react with mainstream broadcast journalists, especially. So I think we're really underrated. I look at some of the exposés that have happened in esports journalism, and I think they're worthy of being held up, to the same standard as some award-nominated mainstream journalism. We've definitely got a great crop right now, and I'm not just talking about CS. I'm talking about across all of esports here. So yeah, definitely underrated for me.
Rivalry, overrated or underrated?
Obviously, everyone's going to say, "Oh, you're sponsored," so it's the answer's relevant. I think it's underrated. I think where I'll say it's in particular underrated is in terms of its content creation. I think it creates a lot of good content. I don't think people realize it's got a website and it publishes articles on there, and people should probably pay a bit more attention to it, because I think stuff like this is great, but it actually produces lots of varied content. Some of it serious, some of it fun. People it seems to fly under the radar a little bit, and hopefully that changes very soon. So yeah, I'm going to say underrated.
The No Majors Club, overrated or underrated?
The No Majors Club, that's kind of a tough one. Like when we started the No Majors Club, it was just like a silly thing we were doing because obviously people couldn't go to the major, or people weren't invited to the major, or people like me had retired from going to events. So it was kind of a way for us all to sort of sit around, drink beer and shoot the shit and share it with the fans. And then it kind of became a little bit more formal. There was like an expectation, like who's going to be on. If they're not at the major, they're going to be on the No Majors Club, right? So in that sense, I mean, listen, I think the community probably overrates it. But then again, when they do that, I'm always trying to live up to that expectation. Like, I don't want it to be like it was the first time, which was literally a group of friends on a Discord. We scaled up as we went on. We got graphics, and we had, a live broadcast from my living room, and we had stingers and transitions and all stuff like that. And when the next one happened, I want it to be better than the last one. So it's probably a little bit overrated for what it is. But I'm always trying to improve on it, and I'm glad that people support it.
The AWP, overrated or underrated?
I'll say underrated if I have to pick one of the two, in the sense that I don't know, I kind of feel that is a gun in terms of what it brings to Counter-Strike. I think a lot of people probably don't think about it conceptually, about how important it is. We've sort of moved into an era, probably because of like nerfs in the game and other things that have been going on, where we don't really see, you know, incredible AWPers right now. We got a lot of hybrid players that are kind of dominating the discussion. But I long for the days of like 2014, 2015, where you could just give that gun to a super talented player and just dominate. And it was just an incredible thing to see. Like, as long as you had a good AWPer, like a Kenny S, you know, vintage Kenny S player, you were always in the round. So yeah, I'm gonna say underrated. I think as broad as the question is, I think we lack great AWPers right now. I think the gun isn't necessarily in a great place, and I think it's so iconic to Counter-Strike. I'd like to see it get back there.
Richard Lewis, overrated or underrated?
Me, underrated for sure. Like, not even just like, there's no way to say this without sounding like an arrogant asshole. But the reality is, in terms of like, you know, what I read about myself, oh, he's that guy that broke that I by Power story. Like, I have broken bigger stories than that since then, and I probably broke bigger stories before it. It's weird, like, people tunnel in on these like 1, 2, 3, the things they can be bothered to remember. They actually never go and look at the body of work I've done over 15 years, and I'm proud of it. I think a lot of the stories I did going back in League, going back to the Daily Dot era, you know, 2014, before I Buy Power, was some of the best work. I had a streak between 2014 and probably 2016 that no esports journalist has had in terms of breaking stories and putting features out there. And yeah, and it's weird how, like, I mean, people have very short memories in esports in general, but frankly, I'm just going to say, I think all anyone ever wants to talk about is the loader incident or, you know, whatever the controversy that I'm involved in that week is. That's what people want to talk about. They never want to talk about holistically the body of work that I've done and all the achievements that I've got. So underrated, and I don't give a fuck if people don't like that.